However, if you're going to write good content, you want to write as many pieces as possible because content is SEO.
Welcome to a groundbreaking moment, the first ever live recording of PIMCon, coming straight to you from the premier conference for personal injury lawyers. I'm your host, Chris Dreyer, founder and CEO of Rankings.io. After working with hundreds of law firms and years, decades even, of SEO, I can tell you this: content isn't just a ranking factor. It's a pillar of your digital presence. Content turns Google into your strongest advocate and clicks into clients. And when it comes to leveraging content to dominate search results in the legal space, there's no one quite like our guest, Matt Dolman. Let me put Matt's expertise into perspective for you. In the last 12 months, Matt's primary website, Dolman Law, has generated a staggering 83 million impressions and over 670,000 clicks. If you are paying for this traffic through Google Ads at a conservative estimate of $20 per click, we're talking about millions in equivalent ad spend. His second website, Lawsuit Legal News, is less than a year old. In the highly competitive mass tort space, he's racked up 10 million impressions and over 300,000 clicks. His passing sites have been around for a decade. To put it bluntly, less than 1% of websites in the legal vertical achieve this level of traffic. Matt isn't just playing the content game, he's rewriting the rule book. Let's get to our conversation recorded live at PIMCon.
So, to give everyone a quick glimpse in the color of myself, I come from very little. I didn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. Family didn't have a whole lot of money. So when I came out, and I was always spending faster than I made money. So I remember looking to my partner when I first opened my practice and figured, how are we going to make the phone ring? And I'm a little bit embarrassed about this story, but hopefully everyone finds it funny. We used to look at the obituary every day. We'd wait for lawyers to drop off, and then we would start buying their phone numbers. Think about that for a second. And that's how I started building my practice. We just answer the phone in law office, and I would just, send the case out to elder planning lawyer, criminal defense lawyer. It didn't really matter, and we started getting cases back to us. I've always run the opposite direction of the sheep. I tried to be ethical. I think I'm a lot more ethical now, but I still want to throw that out there because I'm very honest. A couple years later, we had enough money to start advertising, but I wanted to, get an advertisement in the phone book. And the phone books back then, if you weren't on the front cover or the insert, which was like $10,000 a month, you were nowhere to be found. And $10,000 a month was a lot to a brand new startup practice, even 2 years in, because we're living faster than we were making the money was coming in. That's when I discovered search engine optimization. And it's like language immersion. I started reading every blog that I possibly could, going to every conference, and now that's all I pretty much do. I still run a practice. My goal is to try 3 to 4 cases a year, but for the most part, it's search engine optimization day in, day out. And that dictates the mood of my day, where we are ranked.
Yeah, and I'd say Matt's strength is it's content marketing, right? It really is. There's a lot of components to Google, and just kind of leaning into that. Let's start with MVAs, single event. Like, what type of content should personal injury attorneys be creating to get more car accidents, truck accidents, those types of cases?
So if you asked me this question 3-4 years ago, before the advent of local service ads, that's when, lawyers always care about ranking number 1 or 2 in their geographic region for car accident lawyer, personal injury lawyer, these vanity high volume terms. Those don't convert anymore though, because you have to go through local service ads that is pushed down pay-per-click, and now there's 2 more spots for pay-per-click. Then you get all the way down to the maps, and then below that is where you start seeing organic. I don't know if everyone knows what below the fold and above the fold means. Above the fold is when you're looking at your monitor without having to scroll down, without touching the mouse. That's above the fold. As soon as you touch your mouse and scroll down, you're below the fold. The Google organic results, once you get past local service ads, pay-per-click, and the maps, is so far down, your chance of getting a case is between slim and none. So ranking number 1 or 2 for a vanity term, it doesn't really mean shit anymore, just being honest with you. I started a curse. So the goal now is to make long-tail search content. You want to answer the pain points of your client. Who do I hire after a car accident? Who's paying my medical bills? Who's setting up medical treatment? The typical questions that your clients ask, that's what you should be answering. And the reason being is that when you look up those terms, those search queries, there's actually no advertisements. So you're swimming in a pond by yourself. You're not competing against tons of ads, especially Morgan & Morgan. I'm not pointing them out. They're awesome. But you're not having to compete against, the 800-pound gorilla in the corner.
I think you hit the nail on the head, right? With the AI overviews, the long tail phrases. really specific questions. There's always the question about production. And I think a lot of the PI attorneys, they'll throttle themselves, right? You do effective marketing for, say, $30,000, $40,000 for Google Ads, and you automatically think to move to a different channel when there's so much more opportunities and you're throttling yourself. So I just want to talk about production on the production side. And we'll say words. Most PI attorneys are producing 4,000 words a month, maybe 48,000 words of content a year, maybe 48 articles. I just want, from a quantity perspective, let's talk about that.
I'm afraid you're going to give the wrong message, though. You don't want to push too much content out there, because what we're seeing a lot of law firms doing, and I hope they continue doing this, is using AI and having AI produce content at a very rapid pace. And AI content's never going to rank. In fact, the people who use that, there's numerous studies show that. Search Engine World had a whole article about this a couple of days ago. But if you read that, there's a whole, it's an expose about all these different, not just lawyers, dental practices, medical practices that use AI just to send out so much content that's not ranking and actually syncs your website. However, if you're going to write good content, you want to write as many pieces as possible, because content is SEO.
I couldn't agree more, right? And it comes down to quality, right? It's not everything comes with quantity, but I do want to throw some numbers out here. So Matt, for the past 6 years, has probably averaged 200,000 words a month. That type of content, I mean, he's doing a year's worth of content that most PI attorneys, it'll take most PI attorneys an entire year to produce what he's doing in a month. So there is a quantity perspective. Absolutely has to have quality.
Something I would tell everybody here, though, is you can easily hire writers. You find somebody who's an English major, you bring them in, and you pay them $15, $16, $17 an hour, and they're just pushing out content. And the more they're with you, they get used to the type of content and what type of practice you're running. They start learning from you, and they learn what you want. And you can start pushing out a lot of really good quality content. You'll see your search rankings go up, because no one else is doing it. We have a team of 6 writers that are on staff at all times writing content.
And it's also not just about the same, right? There was a period, for about a 3-year period, where Dolman Law Group ranked #1 for car accident lawyer nationwide, about a 3-year period. So maybe you could just talk about how that content was different and that strategy.
Yeah, so back then, I remember that page, actually. Everyone told me, including some of the vendors here today who do search engine optimization, not to do this. And they were wrong. Broken clock's right twice a day. Once in a while, I'm right. And what I did was I interviewed, like 20 or 30 different lawyers from around the country. And I interviewed them on when you should hire a car accident lawyer, which sounds so boring and vague and just ambiguous. But what that allowed me to do is I now have links pointing out to their site, which you think is moronic. You're sharing all of your link equity with different law firms' websites. But where it worked is Google actually, they reward you. It's almost like you're rewarded by the friends that you keep around you, the company you keep. And when I have strong links pointing at relevant, related websites to what I do, all of a sudden Google rewarded us. And for 3 straight years, we ranked #1 in the country for car accident lawyer. Then Chris took over my SEO, and that's no longer there. Thanks. I'm kidding. It's not true, by the way. Chris has done an amazing job. We stopped focusing on vanity terms.
Curveball there.
Yeah.
A lot of the PI attorneys here, you practice the same area of law. You got car accident lawyer page, you got a slip and fall page. That's kind of table stakes to have good content. Mm-hmm. But I also wanted to just touch on, it's not you produce the content and you're finished. So maybe you could just talk about content refreshing and how you approach that.
Yeah, so Google will reward you they penalize you for having static content that never changes. So if you put a page up for, let's say, right now I got involved in a mass tort called Suboxone. So we represent individuals who have lost teeth due to using Suboxone film. And we got on the steering committee. So with Suboxone, we've updated that article now 20, 30 times. Every time something happens, like the little whiff of something happening in the mass tort, in the MDL, judge gives out an order, we're updating the page. We've updated that page over and over again, and it looks like it's the most fresh content in Google. Therefore, Google ranks us #1 for Suboxone lawsuit update, because we're the most updated content. It's not the best content. I think it is, but maybe not. But it's always going to rank 1, 2, or 3 because we update it so often. And we do that with all of our pages.
Google has a crawl budget, right? There's trillions upon trillions of pages. So why should Google recrawl your page? You have to give Google a reason to recrawl your page. So if the content hasn't been refreshed, it's just like a caching system.
You can actually train Google to crawl your site and your internal pages more often.
Yeah. So maybe just on that. So let's talk about the difference between PI versus, single event, auto versus mass torts. Like, how often do you think you should refresh, say, a car accident lawyer or personal injury page versus, say, a tort, like you just mentioned?
car accident lawyer page or any of your practice pages, I would say once every quarter, add a little bit of content, change some things around, maybe play around with your tags. And those is probably, most people are going right over their head. And not that I'm any smarter, I'm actually dumber than most people in this room. It's just that I do this all day long. But you want to fix your tags, you want to change around your content probably every quarter. Mass torts, weekly, and if you could do it 2 or 3 times a week, all the better. There's so little competition in mass torts. Most mass tort firms spend money on pay-per-click. They don't put a lot of effort towards organic SEO content.
A lot of the car accident sites, there's been firms around for 30 plus years, right? So you're in that race and 20, 30 years behind versus a tort. New tort hits, you're kind of at the same starting line, producing content, refreshing it frequently.
Sure.
The next thing that I really wanted to touch on, because everyone has this fear, AI is going to take over the legal space. And so I guess, Google's changed. So just tell me your thoughts on first the AI overview section and top of funnel content.
So the AI overview section, that's you put in a search term that has high volume, because this is not going to happen on most terms. So terms that have high volume, like car accident lawyer or who's the best personal injury lawyer in Tampa, Florida, and AI is actually going to give you the answer, and it's going to crawl multiple sources, sometimes even one source. But okay, so this is twofold. It's bad and good. The bad part is you get what's called zero search clicks, where no one's actually clicking on any of the actual results. They're just getting the answer from AI. Where this benefits you, though, is if you're listed as one of the sources, all of a sudden you're going to get a flood of intake. You're going to get a flood of individuals calling you, filling out forms. They're going to be all over your website. You're now the best thing in town. And we had that with Suboxone. We had that with heavy metal and baby food. A number of the mass torts recently, we were able to bring in 6,000 Suboxone cases in a matter of 4 months just doing that. We were ranked #1 based on AI credited us with having the best answer.
Everyone in the crowd, I'm sure, is more accustomed to ChatGPT, Perplexity AI, some of the different tools out there. It's just becoming common. Apple's going to have it on your next iPhone, so people are going to be using it. So in terms of an optimization standpoint, what are some of the tools out there that you use to help optimize your content?
All right, so don't use these tools to write the content, but to optimize your content, I like Surfer SEO, it's phrase spelled FRASE.io. What these tools will do is if you want to geek out and be a loser like myself and write search content, you put a term in there, and it's going to show you the top 10 results, and it's going to show you how often they're using 50 or 60 different terms, and how often you should sprinkle it and where you should put that content or put those terms.
Join me at Mardi Gras, happening October 24th through 27th in San Diego. It's the ultimate mashup of legal education and entertainment. A music festival for PI lawyers that bridges the gap between doctors and attorneys. Sharpen your skills with over 50 cutting-edge workshops across 6 tracks. I'll even be on stage myself. Head to LotteGras.com and use code Dreyer for 15% off. That's CHRISDREYER at checkout. See you in San Diego. LotteGras.com. Use Dreyer for 15% off.
Yeah, so it's going to scrape the internet. It's going to tell you where the opportunities are, what keywords that you're under optimized for. So it's really going to, I think of AI as like a tool. So it's just another tool to help maximize your content value.
But there's a lot of law firms out there that are using these tools to just push content, proliferate content all day long.
Yeah,
and those firms are not ranking for shit.
Yeah, so let's lean into that. So in the legal vertical, there's what's referred to as EAT. Expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness, right? If you go Google your symptoms and you're sick, you don't want to see an article from 2016, and that speaks to freshness, right? And the legal vertical is scrutinized in terms of expertise. So, maybe you could speak to that and what you're doing to kind of emphasize, your expertise and content.
EAT is, it's important, but that goes back to even before when we talked about why did I put external links to other sites. That goes to EAT. That goes to these are individuals that are considered other experts, or at least thought to be experts and influencers in the field. They're authoritative, and it's related to the very content that I am producing, so it's trustworthy. That's all we do is focus on EAT. It's constantly refreshing the content, citing our sources. At the top of every page on our Mass Tort site for lawsuit legal news, you'll see like a byline. It'll say, Matt Dolman has handled 10,000 personal injury cases over the last 15 years, and he's recovered $350 million. And it sounds like all bullshit. I mean, it is true. But where that actually serves is it shows you to be an expert, and Google loves that. They just eat it up. And every time we put that in there, when we change the byline, we go from ranking 8, 9, 10 position to 2, 3, 4 overnight, sometimes up to the 1 spot.
That's really speaking to the content creation process, what you do to optimize it. But at the end of the day, you still got to promote it. Mm-hmm. So, what are some of the things that you're doing to promote content once it's live to help influence its rankings too?
So some of this is anecdotal. I can't prove that it works, but I believe it works based on experience. So whenever I get an article or I produce a video on YouTube that I want to get shown, I want to, not necessarily trick the algorithm, because we believe in white hat methods. I promote my content by getting everyone in my office to share it on all their social media feeds. I don't want to do that too often, though, because Google's algorithm will catch on to that you're trying to almost spoof the algorithm. But when I get an article, like let's say I'm coming out, there's a new mass tort. And for instance, boar's head meat caused listeria. We jumped into that project, and as soon as I got the article up, I had 9 individuals in my firm share it that day. The next day, because I wanted it to look like it was ongoing and not everyone shared at once, don't blow all your wads. So the next day we had 7, then we dropped it down to a few more. Then I had all my friends and family members and every last idiot that I knew share this. And all of a sudden we saw it go up, because not many people are sharing listeria articles. So all of a sudden, if you get 40 views, you're doing better than everyone else in the block who got 2 or 3 views that day. So that we suddenly went up.
Yeah, I think I heard the CEO of Instagram say something about, the likes and reshares didn't matter. It was more the engagement. So it's kind of a way to manipulate the engagement, but also from a distribution.
Google's told us forever that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And Google's lied to you.
Yeah, so let's talk about the release, the leak recently. So just some things that we're talking about.
That was what, back in May or April?
Yep.
There was it WikiLeaks or was it Reddit came out? Was it Reddit community forum?
Yep.
Okay, and it published all the different algorithm factors, all the ranking factors. And it showed that everything that Google's come out with, like I think the guy's name is John Mueller and a few others from Google, have told us over the years, all of it was bullshit. They told you that social media does not help search rankings. What they didn't want you to do is try to manipulate the search rankings by using social media, so they basically gave you a false narrative. Social media 100% helps search rankings.
Yeah, so
every last time we've done it, it worked.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I know a lot of the SEO people in the crowd are probably like, oh, it's no follow links, it doesn't help. But I think from just the traffic itself, which is another reason why Google ads to core landing pages could impact search. That's why social media does. It also helps you get those backlinks.
Just the more engagement you have on your page and pointing at that one specific page, the better off you'll be.
Absolutely. I want to touch on something that's a little different. I think, the insurance companies, they're always collaborating, right? And you guys know the tech way better than I do, the Colossus, whatever, they're mining everyone's data and using it against us as the consumer. Mm-hmm. Why do you think there isn't more collaboration? You're Florida, jurisdiction, maybe there's some states. Why isn't there more collaboration from a content perspective?
Most lawyers, I think they missed kindergarten where you learn to share toys. I think that most people worry about losing their share of the market by working with others, even in their own market. It actually helps you. It's always going to come back to help you, because when you share content, or let's say I interview somebody from my area, another Tampa personal injury lawyer, or I get someone who's a mass tort lawyer who serves in the same steering committee to comment on the very project I'm working on. Yeah, they might take some cases from me, great. But my article is now going to rank much better, because now I have relevant, related links pointing at my site or pointing at an external site, and it shows that we're in the same neighborhood, and Google's going to reward me for that.
The other thing that's really common is we'll have some content that's maybe really relevant at today, maybe in a news article, you said the boar's head, right? And then it's on your website and it's no longer relevant. So what should you do with the outdated content? Should you just leave it there? Should you think about prune it? Like, what should you do?
So, there's multiple ways to skin this cat. When you look at content that's old and possibly outdated, there's what's called evergreen content that's always going to be okay. That's always going to be, I wouldn't call it in style, but will always be what is happening in the industry. Like, the dangers of texting and driving is not going to change 5 years from now. Maybe 20 years from now, people look back and say, no one's using cell phones anymore. I don't know what's going to happen next 20 years. But the dangers of speeding or not wearing your seatbelt, that content's always going to be evergreen. But writing about listeria meat or writing about the Suboxone lawsuit, when that lawsuit eventually gets settled or gets dismissed, that article is no longer relevant. So then you want to point that article at another page on your website. It's called a 301 redirect.
Yeah, so that 301 redirect will help preserve the link equity, which helps drive the authority of the site. So, you just got to be cautious, look at tools, make sure that they receive traffic. If they're receiving traffic, even if they're outdated, put in those proper codes. But yeah, it's really important to prune your content, pull the weeds, just like maintaining the home.
But most sites, 90 to 95% of your traffic is from 10% of your website, 10% of your content. So you always want to prune and get rid of old pages that are getting no traffic at all.
Absolutely.
That's going to bring down your site.
Let's talk just a couple final things here, Matt. I want to talk about just measuring success, right? It's the age-old problem of attribution, right? It's the if 50% of your marketing's working, you just don't know what 50%. So on the content side, like what are the tools, what are the strategies you're using to measure if a content piece is successfully working?
All right, so track attribution. You want to have a unique phone number, a call tracking number for every page on your site, or at least the pages that drive traffic. So you want to go through Google Search Console, Google Analytics, and you'll see which pages are getting no traffic. Don't worry about those pages. But the pages that are getting more than 20, 30 views a week, those pages should all have a unique phone number. That otherwise you'll never know what's actually working, and then it's lather, rinse, repeat, or scraping that page completely. How do I track it? Well, the most important way is your phone's ringing. We're getting intake. You're going to look at a couple of different third-party sites work too. There's Ahrefs, Ahrefs, and SEMrush, SEMrush. Those sites will show you third-party data based on what they estimate your traffic to be based on where you're ranking. So they know how many times that term has been searched. They're just not going to know how many times people have actually been on your page unless you link Google Analytics to those sites, which you can do.
And my follow-up question to this, and you'll have some fun with this probably to me, is the time orientation, right? So first of all, I'll be the first one to say as an SEO that the default in the space is how long does it take to get results is 6 months, right? You've all heard that, right? That's not necessarily true, especially if you've been practicing, you've had content for a long time. But what type of time orientation should you look at a piece of content to determine if it's working, if it's not working? What do you do there?
Well, not all websites are apples to apples comparison. So a strong website that has a lot of visibility, you put a new piece of content out there for a new project, you'd hope that it's going to rank in 69 days at most, usually within the first 30. A website that's not well developed, doesn't have a lot of traffic, changes made to the website usually take 4 to 6 months before you're starting to see incremental improvements. It's not going to be substantial, but hopefully 1 or 2 year pages are going to spike.
That wraps up this special episode of PIM with Matt Dolman. Over the coming weeks, we will reveal more insights from PIMCon. Follow and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode of Personal Injury Mastermind with me, Chris Dreyer, founder and CEO of Rankings.io. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. See you next time. I'm out.